For American Family News, I'm Chris Woodward. Keep a check on your local weather today. That is especially the case for people east of the Mississippi River. A severe weather front has dumped heavy snow around the upper Midwest, spawned thunderstorms in the south, and is threatening several mid-Atlantic states with heavy rain and possible tornadoes. There are reports this morning that Israel may be running low on the things it uses to intercept incoming missiles. Fox and Friends covered that today with reporter Trey Yingst.
An official told me they are not currently running low on interceptors, but we know they don't have an unlimited amount. And so this is part of the consideration, not just for Israel, but also for Gulf countries. It's very expensive to shoot down these incoming Iranian missiles and drones. But as the president made clear, up to 90 to 95% of this incoming fire has been reduced as a result of the successful strikes in Operation Epic Fury. And so this is expected to continue. And at this point, the Israelis say they are not having trouble shooting down the incoming fire.
That's interesting. It's only been a few weeks. They don't have enough interceptors on hand to make this last week more and more weeks. If they're saying it's going to last 3 more weeks, do they have enough for that?
The short answer is we don't know. We do know that during the war last summer, the 12-day war between Israel and Iran that ended with Operation Midnight Hammer, where President Trump ordered the strikes against Iran's nuclear facilities, largely destroying many of the mechanisms that the regime uses, the Israelis were coming under actually more intense bombardment.
For more on the situation with Iran, visit our website, afn.net. A Houston area Muslim parent has filed a federal lawsuit accusing Texas officials of religious discrimination by excluding Islamic private schools from the state's new school voucher program. AFN's Robert Thornton has more.
The Christian Post reports the lawsuit was filed March 1st. The voucher program initially allocates $1 billion for eligible families to use public funds for private tuition, with priority for lower-income households and those with special needs. Plaintiff Mehdi Cherikawi, the father of 2 children attending Houston Quran Academy, Spring, says the school meets all neutral statutory requirements for participation but has been blocked due to impermissible religious gerrymanders by the acting controller related to Islamic ties. The controller requested a legal opinion from AG Ken Paxton, and Paxton affirmed the controller's authority under the measure's other relevant laws provision. Daniel Greenfield is CEO at the David Horowitz Freedom Center.
I'm a big supporter of voucher programs. At the same time, there should be no bar on state actually being able to provide funding to religious schools. At the same time, you want those schools to be not actively hostile to America.
He said certain standards must be met if private or religious schools are getting money.
This is something that I think should apply to schools that are overrun by the left as well. Is you cannot support anti-American activity, you cannot support violence, you cannot support extremism, however you define it. You can't, for example, have the Church of Satan set up a school and preach that they're going to overthrow the United States government and eliminate the Constitution, or you can have communists set up a school calling for the same things.
I'm Robert Thornton.
A new study sheds light on the U.S. cities with the safest streets in America. Fox's Kristen Goodwin.
The analytics data company Streetlight comparing 100 of the nation's largest metro areas using factors including vehicle speeds and truck activity to find the safest streets. It ranks the New York City metropolitan area as the safest, followed by Boston, Portland, Oregon, Boise, Idaho, and Spokane, Washington. Report authors say larger metros tend to perform better overall for roadway safety, despite popular misconceptions that big cities are more dangerous. Also noting the best performing metros for managing residential speeds are concentrated in the upper Midwest and Northeast. And adding only 2 big metros make the top 10 for residential speed management: Los Angeles and Miami.
In final news, it's time to make out your brackets. March Madness for men's basketball begins tomorrow. Duke is the number 1 overall seed playing out of the East region. Arizona is the number 1 of the West, Michigan the Midwest, and Florida the Southeast. That's despite a loss in the semifinals of the SEC tournament. Find more news on afn.net.
Hey, I'm curious. Would you help AFA continue to stand in the gap for future generations of our families? You know, we rely on the generous gifts of people like you, and you can help keep the mission of AFA going strong well into the future with planned giving through the AFA Foundation. If you have questions, we can answer them and then help you set up a charitable gift annuity or a bequest. You'll leave a legacy that will impact your grandkids and beyond. Visit afafoundation.net to find out more.
Welcome to Real Truth for Today with Pastor Jeff Schreve, Senior Pastor of First Baptist Church in Texarkana, Texas. Now, here's Pastor Jeff.
Well, not quite. This is not Pastor Jeff, but he is certainly a good friend of mine, and it's my honor to sit in for him. This is Bishop E.W. Jackson, once again standing in for Pastor Jeff, and grateful to God to do so. And as always, I want to thank all of you for your prayers, your support, for everything you do to make this network possible. We couldn't do any of it without God, but we also need God's people to stand with us, and thank you all for doing that. As I've said many, many times, I don't know of a single network in the United States of America where the First Amendment is truly at work, allowing what needs to be said without apology, without excuse, without dilution. Of course, we are a biblically based network. That means you're not going to tune in here and hear a bunch of hatred and profanity and filth and nasty talk. All of that seems to be quite acceptable to the mainstream media, but what's not acceptable to them is God talk. That's the one thing that seems to be off limits, and you'll hear very, very little of that in the mainstream media, and it's rather unfortunate. In fact, I've been talking about the fact that we're having our Stand Awards dinner on Tuesday, May the 12th, at the Tyson's Corner Marriott in Tysons, Virginia. If you're in the area, please support us. It's our biggest event of the year, our biggest fundraiser of the year. We have been so graciously supported by American Family Association, American Family Radio. Really appreciate that. We could use your support as well. We have 4 honorees, and you probably know most of them. Richard Viguerie, who is, I consider to be one of the founding fathers of the modern conservative movement. He is among probably maybe less well known, but still in that class with James Dobson and Jerry Falwell and Tim LaHaye and James Robinson and all of those folks who got together and really helped map out a Christian conservative movement, and he is in the middle of that. He's 92 years old. We're going to be giving him the George Washington Award for taking a stand. Marjorie Dannenfelser, who is the president of the Susan B. Anthony List, who is one of the greatest pro-life warriors in the history of the pro-life movement. We will be recognizing her. Somebody you may or may not have ever heard of, Bishop Patrick L. Wooten. His name is pronounced Wooten, but it's actually spelled like it looks like wooden, W-O-O-D-E-N. Bishop Patrick L. Wooten. He is the pastor of Upper Room Church in Raleigh, North Carolina. He is a jurisdictional bishop for the Church of God in Christ and one of the most outspoken, forthright, biblical worldview black conservatives in America. And we are grateful to God to be honoring him. And last but certainly not least, we're giving the George Washington Award for taking a stand to Charlie Kirk posthumously. We're not exactly sure who's going to be there to receive the award, but we are talking to Turning Point USA, and they are definitely going to be represented there to receive the award in behalf of Charlie Kirk. So we're going to have a great time. We'd love to have you there. That's Tuesday, May the 12th. At 7 p.m. at the Tyson's Corner Marriott. That's in Tysons, Virginia, which is right outside of D.C. Not in D.C., right outside of D.C. Now, I brought all that up to not only inform you, but to let you know there was one other honoree that we were going to recognize from the mainstream media. I won't say the name because I don't want to embarrass the person. I'll simply say it was somebody from Fox. And we ultimately got the word back that they would decline any involvement at all. And I know what that is all about. It's all about the fact that I have taken an outspoken stand against homosexuality, and I don't care whether the homosexual is conservative or liberal or somewhere in between, because it is sin, it is wrong, it is an abomination to God, and this effort to legitimize it and to normalize it is demonic. And they know that I've taken that position, and yet, of course, they have homosexuals on their air, and look, they're perfect. It's perfectly within their right to do so, and I don't object to their exercising their right to do so. It wouldn't be me, but So I think that's one of the reasons why, for those of you who've been following me for a number of years now, I used to be on Fox several times a week, but I think what happened was the LGBTQ mafia finally got me labeled as anti-gay and said, we can't have him on because it offends all of our quote-unquote gay friends. That's a word I do not use. I use homosexual because be gay is a stolen word that they stole from the normal vocabulary, which means happy and carefree and joyous, and they've now stolen it to mean sexually perverse. So I don't use it. But at any rate, I said all that to say that's why AFR is so important, because we're never going to be banned on AFR because we say what the Bible says about something. Remember, I'm not preaching hatred. I'm not preaching hurting people. I'm not preaching, I'm not even preaching trying to deny people their fundamental right to live, to work, to be at peace, to not be attacked because of their so-called sexual orientation, as they label it. I am not promoting or supporting any of that. What I am supporting is our right to continue to express the biblical worldview on this stuff. In fact, folks, let me just say, the reason why we're dealing with all this transgender madness is because we opened the door, not you and me, but once society opened the door and said, well, yeah, homosexuality is normal, it's good, it's right, it's perfectly appropriate. Okay, so in other words, you now rejected God's standard on that. So what's next? Well, now we see what's next. What's next is gender in general. There's no such thing as sex. There's no such thing as gender. Everything is fluid. People move. And the question now is, where does it go next? Because this thing is not done. Because the madness, the lies, the deception, it never stops. And frankly, it never ceases to amaze me how much further they can go when it feels like they ought to have gone as far as they can. So let me get into the first subject I want to talk about. Now, you may think this is only about Virginia, but folks, believe me, you folks living in red states, thank God and keep it red. Virginia, as you know, we had a terrible election. We elected Abigail Spanberger to be governor of Virginia. That's my particular approach to her name, because she ran as a moderate and she is a flaming radical. So I call her Abigail Spanberger. Her name is Spanberger, obviously. But the guy who won for attorney general is the guy who fantasized about killing Todd Gilbert. If I had two bullets and three people, Adolf Hitler, Pol Pot, and Todd Gilbert, I'd put two bullets in the head of Todd Gilbert. That's what he said, the guy who's now our attorney general. And then he said if his children died in his wife's arms, maybe he would see things differently. Which, again, folks, I raise this question: who thinks like that? I mean, in all of my years in politics, in all of my years of life, I have never thought about anybody that way, including people who have wronged me. I've never thought, I want to see that person dead. I want to put two bullets in his head. I want to see his children die in his wife's arms. I mean, that to me is a sick individual. And yet this individual is now Attorney General of Virginia. And then, of course, we elected the first Muslim. Lieutenant Governor is now a Muslim in Virginia. So, folks, and then they took over the House. I think they won, I forget the exact number, I think about 13 additional seats. So they've got full control. And on April 21st, we're having a referendum on a constitutional amendment that would allow the legislature to engage in redistricting, not every 10 years as the Constitution now requires, but allow them to do so now. Now, their justification is twofold. One is, well, other states are doing it. Texas is trying to do it. And when other states are trying to do it, we need to be able to do it too. I mean, I thought they were elected to serve the people of Virginia. But now you see, they don't, folks, I say this all the time. They want to take over the country. They want absolute hegemony over the country. They want America to be a one-party state. That's what they're after. And so what they're trying to do then is amend the Constitution, get this, so that they can effect a redistricting plan that creates we have 11 seats in congressional seats in Virginia. That creates 10 Democrat seats and 1 Republican seat. That's just a token. Let's give them 1. Because we won't be bothered with them that way, but at least they'll have something. So maybe they won't whine and cry and complain. And you know what they're calling this? How they're promoting this? They're saying, vote yes. Get this, folks. I am not exaggerating. Vote yes for fair elections. I am not kidding you. They are calling this a referendum for fair elections to create 10. We have now 5 Republican seats, 6 Democrat seats. They're calling a redistricting effort to create 10 Democrat seats and leave 1 Republican seat, which means, well, they'll have to do some gerrymandering unlike anything we've ever seen before. But that's what they plan to do. And they're calling it a referendum on fair elections. And they're saying in their promotions to people across the state, vote yes for fair elections. Now, you know the devil is a liar. And they are of their father, the devil, and the deeds of their father they will do. He was a liar from the beginning, and the truth is not in him. So on this coming Saturday, for you folks in Virginia, particularly if you're in the South, anywhere near Southeast Virginia, you know people in Southeast Virginia, I'm hosting what I'm calling an Emergency Virginia Leadership Summit, Virginia Conservative Leadership Summit, because it is an emergency. These people are trying to, I liken it to what Jay Jones said. He'd like to put 2 bullets in the head of Todd Gilbert. He wanted to murder him. These people are murdering Virginia politics. They really are. I mean, it's metaphorical, of course, but they're really murdering it. They're trying to completely kill the Republican Party in Virginia. That is what they're up to. And it is shameful. And then lying and telling the people, if you vote yes, you're voting for fair elections. Because for them, fair is we have no opposition. That's what they mean by democracy. That's what they mean by fair. They mean the ability to do anything they want to do. So, again, if you're in Virginia, go to, it's at 10 a.m. at 943 Canal Drive, 10 a.m., 943 Canal Drive in Chesapeake, Virginia. 10 a.m., 943 Canal Drive. It's going to go from 10 to 1. Congressman Jen Kiggins is going to be there. My good friend, top Tea Party leader in Virginia, Nelson Velez, is going to be speaking. We got folks from the Family Foundation who are going to be there. It's going to be a coalition of people. And what we're going to be looking to do is figure out what do we need to do to save the state and honor the legacy of George Washington and Thomas Jefferson and Patrick Henry and James Madison and George Mason, these illustrious founding fathers who left us a legacy of Judeo-Christian values and principles and individual liberty and free markets and freedom of speech and freedom of conscience and all of that. And these people are trying to trample all of that. They would tear down the statues of George Washington and Thomas Jefferson and erect statues of George Floyd. That's what they're trying to turn Virginia into. The majority leader of the state Senate owns marijuana, at least one, I think it might be 2, but at least one marijuana store. All the studies have been coming out now about what this marijuana is doing to people. But the head of the state Senate in Virginia is a drug dealer. And that's not an exaggeration. She owns a marijuana store, Louise Lucas. That's what we've got now. Well, the devil's just running rampant. And we have come in the name of Jesus to destroy the works of the devil. Help us. Stand America PAC is the website, standamericapac.com. Go check it out. We'll be back in just a moment with more. Bishop E.W. Jackson standing in for Pastor Jeff Schreve.
They're coming for your family. Not with guns, not with armies, but with laws, with lawsuits, with ballots and bureaucrats. Parental rights are under attack. Marriage is being redefined. Your values, they want them silenced, and they're counting on you to do nothing. But here's the thing, we're not backing down. I'm Walker Wildman, and AFA Action is in the fight, in the legislature, in the courtroom, and at the ballot box. We're stopping bad legislation, we're challenging activist judges, and through iVoter Guide, we're helping Christians vote like it matters, because it does. Thousands of families are already standing with us, and I believe the American family is still worth fighting for. But we can't do it without you, and we need your help today. Visit afaaction.net right now. Give today. Join us on the front lines, because the other side isn't slowing down, and neither can we. afaaction.net. Your voice, your values, your vote.
God has called you to do more than just survive Satan's attacks. He's inviting you to go on the offensive. This week on Pathway to Victory, Dr. Robert Jeffress reveals the weapons God has given you to push back the forces of darkness. We're continuing the series, The Divine Defense, this week on Pathway to Victory with Dr. Robert Jeffress.
Weekday mornings at 6 Central on American Family Radio.
If we lose this cultural war, we're going to have a hedonistic, humanistic society.
Discover the story of the culture warrior Don Wildman and how he went head-to-head with Hollywood, Playboy, the homosexual agenda, and the Disney Empire. The movement Don started paved the way for Christians to boldly stand for truth and righteousness in a hostile culture. Watch Culture Warrior today for free. Visit culturewarrior.movie.
Satan wants to destroy God's sacred design for marriage and family. How do we defend them in this hostile culture? Activate Summit 2026 is July 16th through the 18th at the Cadence Bank Arena in Tupelo, Mississippi. And the focus this year is on God's plan for marriage and family. Speakers include Laura Petherbridge.
When we set boundaries when we're in anger, they usually come out as unhealthy boundaries.
Josh Wood.
It's getting you to think about planting a tree in the shade of which you'll never sit.
Katie Faust.
It is very hard for a child to answer the question, who am I?
And more. There's also Activate Kids, a separate track for children ages 6 to 12. And something new this year. Get separate tickets for an exclusive meet and greet reception at AFA with the conference speakers on the evening of July 17th. Register now for Roots to Fruit, grounded in truth, growing in grace. Visit afa.net/summit. afa.net/summit.
This is Real Truth for Today. Podcasts of the program are available on the podcast page at afr.net. Now, back to Pastor Jeff Schreve.
And this is Bishop E.W. Jackson in for Pastor Jeff. Speaking of podcasts, by the way, I'm still part of the AFR family. I have a podcast, The Awakening, that posts every Wednesday. Posts somewhere around 10 o'clock, I think, a.m. Central Time, every Wednesday. So be sure, please, to check that out, The Awakening podcast, and you'll get commentary and information from me. Look, I didn't intend to talk as much as I have about Virginia, but the reason why I feel justified in doing so is it's a window into the souls of these people and what they want for our country. That's why it's important to talk about this. I mean, for example, Virginia has already passed. Did you know 18 other states have already passed a law that says if the majority of the country votes for a particular candidate, in other words, the popular vote. Now listen to this closely, folks, because this is critical. Even if the people of that state voted for another candidate, the legislature can ignore those electoral votes and create a whole new slate to agree with the majority popular vote. Yes, you heard that right. 18 states have already passed it. Check it out. And they passed it in Virginia. Now, the question is, at what point will they try to implement that? That's going to be a constitutional crisis, because basically what they'll say is, we're going to ignore the electoral college. Ignore it. Because even though our electors, even though our people, that is, voted for, say, let's just use the example, our people voted for Donald Trump rather than Kamala Harris. Since Kamala Harris got the popular vote, we're going to give Kamala Harris our electoral votes. I mean, what? Look, it's the same justification that they're using for this amendment to do redistricting. What they're saying is, well, other states are doing it, and we have to respond to what other states are doing. They were elected to serve the people of Virginia, not elected to serve the interests of the Democrat Party writ large. But they don't care what the people think. All they care about is power. Just think about that. And they're constantly accusing President Trump of wanting to be a dictator. Boy, talk about projection. That's what these people really want. And again, if you ever want any proof of that, you ever want any evidence, you see how they behaved during COVID. That's all you need to know. You see, the moment they were given an opportunity, the tyranny just oozed out of their pores. And every chance they had to control people, they used it. Arresting pastors and fining people for going to church and threatening people if they did anything that some bureaucrat came up with, saying that this is you're trying to kill people if you don't put on a mask, knowing that the whole thing was a farce. You got to stay in churches that seat 5,000 people. You can only have 10 people in that room. Our governor lectured us about you don't need to go to church to pray. No, but the Bible says in Hebrews chapter 10, forsake not the assembling of yourselves together as is the matter of some, but all the more as you see the day approaching. We are commanded to assemble. But no. Governor Ralph Northam knew better, and he commanded us not to assemble. So, I mean, look, I am never going to bring up every subject we could talk about. So in the next segment, I'm going to start taking your calls and comments. 888-589-8840 is the number. That's 888-589-8840 is the number. Let's get to the other 800-pound gorilla in the room, which is the war in Iran. But more importantly, while we are facing this military conflict with Iran, and we're seeing them trying to jam up the Strait of Hormuz and trying to stop, I think, about a third of the oil that flows throughout the world from getting through. And I am confident that our military will put a stop to that. We're seeing some increase in oil prices. But here's the thing. There are two things that I want to point out that I think should just chill us to the bone. One is the fact that these same Democrats, as I affectionately refer to them, will not fund Homeland Security at a time when we are seeing rising threats and terrorist actions across the country. Remember, Iran was the biggest funder of terrorism in the world. And a lot of their money to fund terrorism came from us through President Obama with the midnight cash drop and President, I started to call him O'Biden, that would be appropriate, Biden with dropping all the sanctions and allowing Iran to gain access to cash. It's almost as if these two presidents wanted Iran to kill more Americans, wanted them to kill more people. I mean, I said it's almost as if you don't want to think that that's what they were actually trying to do, but that's the result. And surely they must have known that. And even in a court of law, you can be held responsible for having done something intentionally when you either knew or should have known that the result would be as it was. So even if in their minds they weren't thinking, yeah, let's get some more people killed around the world, surely they knew that funding Iran was going to lead to that result. But they did it anyway. And as far as I'm concerned, folks, and this is a strong word I'm going to use, but as far as I'm concerned, these people who are refusing to fund Homeland Security right now are traitors. They are traitors. Because, again, they're not doing that because they think that's in the best interest of the United States of America, the best interest of our people. They're doing it because they think it's in their best interests. They're doing it because they think they're satisfying their left-wing base. and that left-wing base is the key to their future hegemony over this country. That's what's going to allow them to get these illegal aliens to vote. That's what's going to allow them to keep all these so-called refugees that we brought into the country who are turning into terrorists to actually vote. That's what they believe is going to keep the minorities in their camp, because they're going to say, we're standing up for third world people, and we're standing up for people of color. As Gavin Newsom said, because Israel is an apartheid state, meaning that Israel is a racist state, and they're oppressing people of color. This is the last refuge of the scoundrel, folks. It's all about race, and white people are the problem. This is the last refuge of the scoundrel. It is deeply demonic, but it's very effective at manipulating people's emotions. The Democrats have figured that out, and they never fail to use their most effective weapon. Here's the second thing that ought to chill us to the bone. The fact that we've got people in our country, some of them American citizens, running around chanting support for Hezbollah, support for Hamas, and support for Iran. We had a bunch of them protesting in New York yesterday. I mean, again, my question is, A, how are these people, now some of them are American citizens, therefore born here, nothing we can do about that, except to tell them, but if you really hate the country that much, why don't you just go? But some of these people are not American citizens. Why are they here? And why do we allow them to stay? We talk about ICE needs to be looking at these people who are out there, because as far as I'm concerned, if you are out there chanting in support of the Iranian regime and chanting in support of Hamas and Hezbollah, who are murderers and terrorists and thugs, and as far as I'm concerned, you're a traitor to our country, and you ought to just go live somewhere else. And if you're not, even if you're an American citizen, but if you're not an American citizen, you should be kicked out quickly, because you're a threat to. If you're willing to do that, I don't see any difference between your willingness to do that and your willingness to plant a bomb or your willingness to shoot people. If you're supporting people who are willing to do that, as far as I'm concerned, you're willing to do it yourself. So, folks, we have got a serious problem on our hands. And as Abraham Lincoln said in his Lyceum address before he was president, he said, if America's destroyed, that destruction will come from within, not from without. I'm paraphrasing a little bit, but that's what he said. And you can see the seeds of that destruction. You can see it. I mean, this willingness to allow people into our country and allow people to stay in our country. We're even, again, some of these Muslim mosques, these madrasas, these schools teaching children I'm talking about in our country, and I'm not talking about in some Muslim nation. I'm talking about in our country, teaching children to hate America, to hate Israel, to hate Jews, and that the greatest honor is to die killing these people that you hate. Teaching this to children, and we're allowing them to do it right here in our own country. I'm taking a little bit out of context because the person who said it is not somebody, as I recall, that you necessarily want to quote. But I'll tell you what, I think the statement taken in isolation is the right one. The Constitution is not a suicide pact. It is not a suicide pact. It does not mean we allow people to kill us right within our own country and say, well, we don't want to try to stop them because after all, their right is protected by the Constitution. Well, first of all, not if you're not a citizen. If you're not a citizen, you got a right to get out of here quickly. And I have to say, folks, some of these judges are on their side. You see these people who have committed these heinous crimes, and these politicians, these liberal, leftist, Marxist politicians will not allow ICE detainers so that these people can be adjudicated in federal court if necessary, but deported if that's what's on the menu. They don't want that. It is, if you don't understand that this is strictly about power, and it doesn't matter what it takes to get it or what they have to do to get it, if you don't understand that, these actions make no sense. You just scratch your head and go, "What? I don't get. What are they doing? I don't get it. Why would you be protecting rapists, robbers, killers, human traffickers, drug dealers? Why would you be protecting them? What can they really do for you?" No, you're not just protecting them. You're sending a message to all of their cohorts, to all the people related to them. See, when we get you into this country, we're going to protect your right to stay here as long as you support us. That's all that matters. Support us. I said, we need you to riot when we need you to riot, protest when we need you to protest, and vote when we need you to vote. That's it. By the way, there's a case, I wish I had time, and maybe I will be able to get into some of the details of a Marine. He is not a citizen, and he was never naturalized, but he came into this country, I guess, on a permanent visa, joined the Marine Corps, served honorably in the Marine Corps, but then it was learned that he never became a citizen, yet he voted in our elections. Now, I don't know. A lot of people are supporting this guy, and I think on first blush, it seems like he's somebody worthy of support. But here's the thing I want to focus in on. He was not a citizen, and he was voting. Nobody stopped him. Nobody stopped him. He just walked right into the voting booth and voted, and he was not a citizen. The problem now is that since he's voted in elections without citizenship, he is now no longer eligible for citizenship, which is a rather sad situation, assuming that he did so really believing that he had become a citizen, although I don't know how one believes that. Again, I'm trying to give this Marine, this fellow Leatherneck, the benefit of the doubt. I don't know how one believes that, because it's a whole process that you have to go through to become a citizen. But somehow he thought that serving in the Marine Corps created some kind of automatic trigger or something in which he could become a citizen or became a citizen. Some of you may know more about that than I do. Again, on first blush, I don't know how that could possibly work, but he argues he was voting in good faith. He did not know he was doing something wrong. The problem is he was doing something wrong, and having fraudulently voted in elections, he is now no longer eligible for citizenship, although I think he served, I don't know, 6 or 8 years in the United States Marine Corps and served honorably, was discharged honorably. In fact, was decorated. But again, that case aside, the thing that I want to just point out is how easy it was for him to vote, although he was not an American citizen, and how much sense, therefore, it makes to say you must have proof of citizenship in order to register to vote. Because this is a perfect case in which we see just walk right into the voting booth, showed his ID, and voted. 888-589-8840 is the number. That's 888-589-8840. You want to talk about these issues I've raised or any other issue, feel free. 888-589-8840. I'm Bishop E.W. Jackson, in for Pastor Jeff Schreve. We'll be back in just a moment.
AFA Action takes attacks on the family seriously. The enemies of the family constantly employ new tactics to try to sneak past our radar. They know if we stand together, their evil plans will fail. Your gift to AFA Action allows us to stay vigilant against their onslaught. And if you give this month, you'll receive access to the Cultural Institute video When Your Faith is Illegal by Frank Harbor on AFA Stream as our thanks. You can make your gift today at afaaction.net.
Do you believe in the absolute inerrancy of God's holy word? Do you believe in the power of the Holy Spirit to radically change lives and empower us to live like Christ? At Wesley Biblical Seminary, we believe God is raising up a movement of people across our nation and across the world. And if you believe these are the kinds of pastors we need leading our churches in the future, we invite you to learn more about partnering with us through giving. Learn more about Wesley Biblical Seminary at wbs.edu today.
Hey, I'm Brant, and her name is Sherry.
Hello.
She's a friend of mine whom we were just praying for because of a surgery she just went through.
Yes, and I am very happy about something you actually talk about all the time, which is
Medishare.
That is right.
Yeah. So what was your experience like with Medishare and the healthcare bills?
Honestly, Brant, seamless. And what a blessing that is when you're already nervous about a health issue, which I was.
Yeah.
Members shared my expenses. There were zero problems. And let me tell you, having people pray with you when you call in with your need, that is just...
It is refreshing.
Yes, that's what it is.
What I keep telling people. People love Medishare, and they love saving tons of money, too. The typical family can save $500 a month.
I am very thankful for Medishare. It is so different, and I mean different in a very, very good way.
It is good different. Call now. They're easy to talk to, and you can get a price within 2 minutes. Call 833-44-BIBLE. That's 833-44-BIBLE. 833-44-BIBLE.
The following is a real-life story from Trinity Debt Management.
I had a lot of credit card debt, and it stressed me out. But what I thought was a solution turned out to be a problem. I kept hearing ads about debt settlement that seemed too good to be true. And actually, it was. When I called, they told me to stop paying my bills. That didn't sound right to me at all, so I hung up. Later, I found out that debt settlement is bad. Real bad. Then I learned that there is a right way to pay off your credit cards. It's called a debt management program from the great team at Trinity. Trinity had a plan. In the end, I paid off my bills, I saved thousands, and I even improved my credit score.
If credit card debt has you down, call Trinity at 1-800-788-1813.
My name is Heather. Please forget debt settlement and remember Trinity Debt Management.
1-800-788-1813.
If you'd like to contact Pastor Jeff, email pastorjeff@fromhisheart.org. Now, back to Real Truth for Today with Pastor Jeff Schreve.
Well, again, I don't know that I'll ever be able to quite be Pastor Jeff Schreve, but I can at least say I'm his good friend, E.W. Jackson, in for him. The number is 888-589-8840. I see we've got some questions about, particularly about this Marine situation, and I want to take those. But anything else that you want to bring up that I have not yet raised, because there's no way I can cover every topic we need to talk about in the course of an hour, but I hope that you will feel free to bring up any topic that you think is worthy of being addressed. 888-589-8840. And let's go right to your calls. Let's go to Rick. Oh, I'm sorry. That's Buck. Buck in Ohio. Buck, welcome. Buck, are you there?
Hello.
Yeah, Buck, you're on.
I am. So I had a question relative to your concern that he wasn't a citizen he voted. Of course, there's lots of politicians, et cetera, who will tell people that aren't citizens that they can vote. And of course, we know that there are a lot of them that have voted. But I would be more concerned, I think, about the fact that he was able to join the Marines and he wasn't a citizen. I would have thought that their process would have been such that would have been extremely difficult, if not impossible. And yet he did, and he served honorably, was honorably discharged. I think that weighs extremely heavily in his favor. You know, sometimes recruiters indicate to people all sorts of things that may or may not be true, trying to join service. So maybe as recruiters, if we told them, oh, yeah, if you're part of the Marine Corps, you're automatically a citizen, or something like that. I don't know, but it seems to me the possibilities there are great. And certainly if he was misled anyway in that situation, part of our law typically is that, of course, this changed with Christ, that you have to look at intent. And that's the point here. His intent certainly wasn't, unless you can show his intent was to vote knowing he wasn't a citizen, but if he believed he was, and if he believed he was, certainly because he served in the Marine Corps, which would, I think, be a pretty good indication that somebody was a citizen or should be, I don't think that there's any real violation of this requirement.
Well, Buck, thank you so much for the call and the comment. You are absolutely right. At least that's what he claims. He claims that his recruiter told him that you join the Marine Corps, you serve honorably, you automatically become a citizen. Again, if you're smart enough to be in the Marine Corps and to serve honorably and be discharged, you would think you would Google it, or something. Because, by the way, folks, as you all know, I am a Marine Corps veteran, and I can tell you, I know my recruiter told me some things. I think back on it and just laugh about the things my recruiter told me about what was going to happen when I joined the Marine Corps. I joined with a half brother of mine, and we were told, you're going to serve together. Oh, yeah, you'll be together from now until, we were together one day. We were together. We went to Paris Island together, and I saw him one time in my entire military career, which is only 3 years, but I saw him one time after that. And the recruiter had assured us, oh, yeah, we'd serve together under the buddy-buddy system. We'd be together the whole time. So you're right, Buck. He claims that his recruiter told him that by joining, he would automatically become a citizen. But look, here's the thing. You can be a non-U.S. citizen and join the military. If you are a lawful, permanent resident and you can read, write, and speak English fluently, you can join the military. So I see the question you're raising, though, is one I hadn't even thought about, which is because I knew you could join if you're a permanent resident. But the question you raise is maybe you shouldn't be able to join the U.S. military if you're not a citizen. Thanks for the call, Buck. Let's go to Jim in Alabama. Jim, welcome.
Hey, good morning. I think you answered my question with the previous caller, and I was kind of bewildered that you can join the military and not be a citizen. I think that should be changed. And unfortunately, the guy didn't realize or believe that he could vote from his recruiter, that's unfortunate. He had to serve his penalty for that. But it's a scary thought, especially with all of the illegal immigration we have, to have an open military that wouldn't require citizenship. And at the same time, I think we should also have citizenship required for voting as well. But I think you answered my question that indeed you can serve in the military, and that's a scary thought in today's times. Maybe in the past it wasn't as big a threat, or they had some good reason to do that. But in today's situations, I think they should be citizens to serve. But that's my opinion.
Jim, thank you so much for the call. Folks, when I was on the radio daily, I would say this, and I'm not blowing smoke at you all. I would say this. One of the reasons why I love taking calls is you all are smart people. You really are. I hadn't even thought about that aspect of it because I'd heard stories before about non-citizens joining the military and serving and then, becoming citizens and all that. But you're right. In this day and time, maybe we ought to revisit that issue and ask the question, should we ever allow anyone who is not a citizen of the United States to join the United States military? Because, look, we've got some people, some of these terrorists have served. In fact, there's one in particular I'm thinking of. I'll see if I can find a reference to him specifically. Served, I believe, in the U.S. Army or U.S. Army National Guard and became an Islamic terrorist. And we've seen that happen before down at Fort Hood. I think the guy's name was Nadal Hassan. He went off and shot up a bunch of people. So, yeah, you all are. Thank you for raising that, because I kind of skipped over that aspect of it. But you're right. That's an issue that we probably need to go back and revisit, whether that's good policy for the United States of America. And President Trump would be just the president to raise that issue. Okay. Let's go to Christy in Texas. Christy, welcome.
Good morning. Thank you for taking my call. My question is, whatever happened to the U.S. treason laws? I mean, in the last 5 minutes you were talking, you mentioned treasonous activity, treasonous people, and we don't prosecute any of this. I mean, even the Islamic leaders in our country, they're chanting death to America. I'm just appalled by it. So maybe you're smarter than I am about this.
Well, Christy, thank you so much for the call. Look, folks, treason is a legal term, and it has certain legal parameters to it. And speaking against our country, while I say is in the spirit of treason, it does not technically rise to the level of committing a treasonous act. A treasonous act is one in which you actually do something which damages the interests of the United States of America at a national security level. But I think what we're really getting at here is the fact that we're allowing the culture of our country to degenerate to a point where it is acceptable to burn the flag and stomp on it. It's acceptable to call for the death of America in our own country. There's something wrong with that. And that's really a cultural issue. And we need to figure out ways to say, okay, your First Amendment gives you a right to do all of that, but we're going to be watching you very, very closely, because, again, if you're willing to do all that, what else are you willing to do? I mean, to me, you are sending a big signal. Just like these mass murderers, they say they always send some kind of signals. You're sending a signal to us that you're a potential threat to our country. And the rest of us ought to respond accordingly. Employers ought to respond accordingly. The media, of course, well, let's not even get into that one. They're enablers of this traitorous thinking and behavior. Let's go to Lynn in Ohio. Lynn, welcome.
Thank you. I just had a comment. I have a family member. I'll be judicious in what I say, but I have a family member that's in the military, and she tells me that she served with many, especially Chinese, and they have been told that if they serve in the military, they automatically get citizenship.
Wow. Well, the plot thickens because there's no such thing as automatic citizenship, as far as I am aware. You might be, shall we say, more eligible, and maybe there are some privileges that gives you that others who are applying for citizenship don't have. But I've never heard of any so-called automatic citizenship. This guy certainly didn't get that. He thought maybe he did, but he didn't. And he was voting in our elections, and he was not a citizen. So, I mean, people think that once you get your honorable discharge papers, you are automatically a citizen. No, there's absolutely nothing like that exists. So, yeah, we need to, this is a situation, given what we're experiencing in our country, that needs, this is a situation that needs a complete overhaul, a sort of re-examination. So thank you so much for the call, Lynn. The number is 888-589-8840. I've got some open lines and time to get a few more calls in. So let's go to Yumi in Texas. Yumi, welcome.
Yes, hi. So I went through the whole becoming a citizenship process, took a test, and to do the interview. So I vaguely remember one of the way to become a citizen is to serve in the military. I'm pretty sure they have to go through the paperwork. It's not automatic. I'm not sure if they would waive the testing part, but it is one of the way to become a citizen. If maybe you can check it.
Did you serve in the military, Yumi?
No.
Oh, okay.
I was married to Americans. Yeah. So, but I remember we have to study the Constitution, right, to pass the test. So I remember the way to become a student. I remember that was one of the way to become a student.
Okay. All right, Yumi. Thank you so very much. I think, folks, that people are to some extent being misled. What I have found, what I'm finding, I'm sort of researching this as we're talking about it because it's what we call the case of the first impression, because I hadn't really thought about this, is that serving in the military provides an expedited pathway to citizenship because the length of residency is reduced for those who serve in the military. The application fee is waived for those who serve in the military. But you still have to apply and you still have to go through the naturalization process just like everybody else. So in that sense, it's no different. And by the way, in order to get the military benefits of expedited applications and waiving the application fee, you have to apply for citizenship within 6 months of being honorably discharged from the military. So apparently, this guy, if he's telling us the truth, and again, I have no reason to doubt that he is, he was completely misled. He just completely misled. Because as she just said, it's a way of becoming a citizen. No, it is not a way of becoming a citizen. It is a way of gaining some advantages toward a citizenship application. But you don't automatically become a citizen because you serve in the military. And if that's what he was told, he was lied to. And I hope that that's not the case, because that's a terrible thing to have somebody. But again, come on. If you served 6 or 8 years in the military, you've got to be smart enough to know, let me just check my status. Let me just see what this means rather than just taking somebody's word for it. So I don't know how that's going. Right now, because he voted fraudulently, he's not eligible for citizenship at all. And they say they would need special legislation in order to grant him citizenship. So that's where we are with that one. Let's go to Jack in Ohio. Jack, welcome.
Yes, thank you. It's an honor to talk to you, Brother Jackson. I had a question pertaining to the Johnson Amendment, and I wanted to get the valid input. I'm not sure. I just heard it off of the radio, and I wanted to make sure that before I ever talked about that is the Johnson Amendment wiped out against the church?
Okay. Thank you so much for the call, Jack. The Johnson Amendment is a regulation, not the law. And my understanding is that President Trump repealed it. But I will double check that, because I'll be right back with you again tomorrow, sitting in for Pastor Jeff Schreve. Been great to be with you all. God bless you. Stand up, step up, speak up, refuse to back up. We cannot be defeated if we will not quit, because we are on God's side.